Good Friday morning. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Audrey Russo. Our top story this morning, the war in Iran, as U.S. and Iranian officials prepare for peace talks in Pakistan tomorrow. Now, the goal of the weekend is to find a lasting end to the war in Iran, and that hinges on a few factors being met. Among the most pressing, reopening the Strait of Hormuz. In the last 24 hours, President Trump criticized Iran on Truth Social, accusing the country of not holding up their side of the two-week ceasefire agreement. Now, since the war began, very few ships have been allowed through that critical pathway for the world's supply of oil. Now, it'll be Vice President J.D. Vance, not the president, negotiating on behalf of the U.S. this weekend. He says eliminating Iran's nuclear capabilities is another peace talk priority.
We want Iran to not be able to make a nuclear weapon. We want the nuclear fuel, which is something the president has made very clear.
Now, there's already some tension heading into the weekend, and that's caused by Israel's attacks on the Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran says that violates the terms of the ceasefire, while the U.S. argues Lebanon was never a part of that agreement. This morning, a small drop in prices at the pump. According to AAA, the national average fell to $4.15 a gallon. That's a 2-cent drop from yesterday, the first time the average U.S. gas prices have gone down by more than a penny since the start of the war in Iran. Here in Minnesota, prices continue to rise this afternoon, reaching an average of $3.75 per gallon. That's a 20-cent jump from last week. The oil price is currently hovering around $100 a barrel compared to $60 a barrel at the start of the year. Right now, soaring gas prices caused a sharp spike in inflation in March. The new Consumer Price Index shows the prices rose 0.9% last month. That's the largest increase seen in nearly 4 years and 3 times the increase seen in February. The report links this increase to gas price shock, with oil prices soaring as a result of the war in Iran. This in turn pushes inflation's trajectory away from the Fed's 2% target. Now, some federal officials have warned a rate hike might be needed if inflation doesn't cool down soon. Developing news right now, a judge has put the federal government on deadline to release documents related to the deadly shooting of Renee Good. But the evidence is actually part of a separate case. A few months before ICE agent Jonathan Ross shot and killed Renee Good, he was dragged by a car during an attempted arrest. Roberto Carlos Munoz Guatemala was driving, and he was found guilty in December. Now, his attorney says Ross was aggressive in his client's case, and there were no body cameras to show those interactions. He says those files related to Good's death could help his client.
Well, anything that's in a court filing is available to the public. And so if there's information that ultimately the magistrate and the court release to me, and I use that either in a motion for a new trial or in a sentencing argument, that information is all publicly available. So that information would be available to the public and certainly to the prosecutors.
Now, the new information could potentially result in a motion for a new trial or the case being dismissed if they don't release the files. This morning, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is preparing to veto a city council decision not to reappoint Community Safety Commissioner Todd Barnett. Progressive council members criticized Barnett's handling of the budget, MPD, and the handling of some high-profile cases, including the shooting of Davis Maturi by his neighbor, plus domestic violence cases involving the deaths of Allison Lucier and Mariah Samuels. Now, even if Frey vetoes the decision, the council could vote to override it with a supermajority. Now, if that doesn't happen, the city attorney is currently reviewing what would happen next with Barnett's position. Now, today marks day 1 of the Freedom to Breathe hunger strike in North Minneapolis. Right now, the hunger strike activists are demanding a public vote to close the Hennepin Energy Recovery Center. It burns about 365,000 tons of garbage each year. Now, residents say that it's bad for public health and for the climate. The hunger strike activists say they want to see the center closed by the end of 2027. Now, this morning, First Lady Melania Trump is speaking out, calling claims about her ties to late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein false. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
First Lady Melania Trump in a rare public statement knocking down rumors about her ties to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
The First Lady not saying why she's speaking out now. Behind the scenes, her legal team has worked for the past year to take on any publications they viewed as spreading false or defamatory information connecting her to Epstein.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump.
She strongly denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes.
Was never on Epstein's plane and never visited his private island.
Mrs. Trump saying she occasionally crossed paths with Epstein at parties and downplaying this 2002 email released in the Justice Department's Epstein files that she sent to Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, referencing a Positive magazine story.
My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence.
The First Lady urging Congress to hold a public hearing for survivors and saying that Epstein did not act alone.
And that means that the entire investigation is legitimate. She needs to call on her husband to get the remainder of the files released.
Republican Thomas Massie putting the onus back on the Justice Department to bring more transparency, as the First Lady's comments put a simmering controversy back in the headlines. In a statement, a group of Epstein survivors said the First Lady's remarks, quote, shift the burden onto survivors under politicized conditions, and called to keep the focus on former Attorney General Pam Bondi testifying, though the Justice Department has said she will no longer sit for a deposition next week now that she is no longer Attorney General. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Changing gears now, let's take a look from the Orion spacecraft. This is finishing its historic 10-day trip around the moon. The Artemis II crew now just hours away from splashing back down to Earth. Now, this is the most dangerous part of the entire mission, with the spacecraft's exterior heating up to more than 5,000 degrees as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. Now, they're scheduled to splash down off the coast of San Diego, and that's going to happen just after 7 o'clock. You can watch the whole thing right here on Kare 11+. A beloved multicultural festival is coming back to St. Paul for the first time in 7 years, and it's got a new name. The International Festival of Minnesota is opening its doors this morning. Now, the reimagined 2-day festival will feature participation from 67 nations and ethnic communities, all celebrating Minnesota's cultural diversity and global connections. The event will offer global cuisine, activities, artisan goods, music and dance performances. Now, for accessibility, Metro Transit will provide free bus and light rail rides for the attendees on both days of the festival. To get your tickets, you can go to ifestmn.org. Prices are $25 for adults and around $13 for children aged 8 to 14. Tickets are also available at the door. Speaking of tickets, if you use StubHub, you may be owed some money. The company agreed to a $10 million payout to settle a federal lawsuit alleging StubHub deceptively advertised ticket prices without disclosing fees. So if you bought tickets between May 12th and May 14th of last year, you're likely eligible for a refund. And that refund is going to reimburse customers for any of the fees that they paid. Now, if you haven't filed your taxes yet, this is the last weekend to do so before Wednesday's deadline. If you need a little more time, though, you can file for a 6-month extension. That request must be submitted before April 15th, and any money you owe to the IRS, must be paid by then as well.
Don't misunderstand extension. It's just an extension to send in paperwork federally and your state.
Now, if you don't pay the IRS on time, you'll likely face a late penalty of 7% interest on the money you already owe. If you need a professional to help, it's not too late to ask. Most big tax services have extra staff just waiting to help you, and they'll be there through the 15th, all just to help you file on time. Now, a big shift for the U.S. military draft system is coming later on this year. All eligible men between the ages of 18 and 26 will now automatically be registered. But that doesn't mean that an actual military draft is coming. There hasn't been a draft since the Vietnam War, but since 1980, all men between the ages of 18 and 25 have been required to register. Many completed that process while applying for federal student loans or a driver's license, but each year fewer and fewer have complied. So late last year, Congress passed a bipartisan bill mandating automatic registration to streamline the process and the costs.
I think it's good in a way, but I just don't see the draft ever starting up. But you never know now. The way the world situation is, hopefully we've got enough people that have joined the military that they won't ever need the draft, but I don't know that.
Now, reinstating an active military draft would require another vote before it could become a reality. Now, stick with us for more news and weather. It's coming up right after the break.